You ever meet someone who smiles sweetly in public but turns into a monster the second the doors close? That was my ex-wife. She lied. She manipulated. She tried to poison my own children against me and almost succeeded. For years, I lived in a nightmare of accusations, isolation, and financial ruin. But here's the thing about liars. They forget that the truth has teeth. And when the time came, I was the one holding the leash. At first, everything felt like a dream. She seemed supportive, caring, even affectionate. But little cracks started showing. A subtle jab disguised as a joke. A manipulative twist of a story when she didn't get her way. And eventually, full-blown lies. Abuse doesn't usually start with screaming matches or slamming doors. It's more like a slow leak. At first, it's tolerable, even ignorable, until one day you wake up and realize the floor beneath you is rotted through. She chipped away at me, at who I was. She'd belittle me in front of others, then laugh it off like I couldn't take a joke. She'd rewrite arguments, gaslight me until I questioned my own memory. And worst of all, she turned that same venom on our kids. The way she'd manipulate them, it made my stomach twist. She'd whisper poison into their ears about me, say I was selfish, that I didn't care about them, that I was unreliable. For years, she made them believe I was the villain in their lives. And for years, it worked. You ever have your own child look at you with distrust? With contempt that you didn't earn? That was my life. And I can't even describe the heartbreak of it. Nights where I'd sit alone at the kitchen table, staring at the wall, wondering what kind of monster she had painted me to be in their minds. The marriage didn't collapse all at once. She dragged it out, squeezing every ounce of control, every drop of dignity from me. Even after the divorce papers were signed, the war didn't end. She tried to get me arrested multiple times. Every scheduled visit with the kids became a battlefield. She'd call the police claiming I was dangerous, unstable, unfit. I'd arrive at my children's school only to be told I couldn't see them because of some sudden incident she'd fabricated. And she didn't stop with me. She reached out to my friends, my colleagues, even my family. At first, she tried to play the victim, crying on their shoulders, spinning tales of my supposed cruelty. When that failed, she turned vicious. Harassment calls to my parents at midnight. Nasty emails to my sisters filled with accusations so wild they were almost laughable. Almost. But living through it, it was suffocating. Every day felt like standing in a courtroom where the verdict was always against me, no matter the truth. And then came the lawsuit. She had been in the hospital after a minor accident. I was there by her side, trying to be a good husband despite the storm she carried with her. She wanted to get out of bed and look in the mirror. I told her we should wait for the nurse, but she insisted, demanded. And when she demanded something, there was no reasoning with her. So I helped her. I held her as she stood by the mirror, searching her reflection for any mark she could dramatize later. And then, she fainted, collapsed before I could catch her properly. She hit her head on the sink, split her lip, and landed hard enough to break her wrist. It was terrifying in the moment. I rushed for the nurse, alarms went off, doctors came running. They stitched her up, set her wrist, and that was that. At least, I thought that was that. But about a year later, right around the time the divorce turned nastiest, she decided to sue the hospital. A malpractice case, claiming she had never been warned not to get up, claiming the bed rails weren't in place, claiming it was their fault she fainted and fell. And her entire case depended on me. Her lawyer contacted me, expecting me to back up her story, to lie under oath and say that no one ever told her to stay in bed, that no rails were up, that she was just an innocent patient abandoned by the hospital. I was supposed to be her star witness. Imagine that. The woman who had tried to ruin me in every possible way now needed me to play along, to help her squeeze money out of the hospital. At first, I almost laughed at the irony. But then reality hit. This was my chance. My chance to do something she wouldn't see coming. Of course, I didn't show my hand. Not yet. Instead, I agreed to give the deposition on one condition. I told her lawyer that if they wanted my time, they'd have to pay me for it. Travel costs, lost wages, the whole deal. They agreed. They thought they had me in their pocket. Thought I'd roll over and play my part just like she always made me do during the marriage. But they didn't know the truth was burning inside me, waiting for the perfect moment to come out. The weeks leading up to the deposition felt like walking through a minefield. On the outside, I had to act neutral, civil, even. I couldn't tip my hand. If she suspected I wasn't going to back her up, she'd find a way to twist it into another nightmare for me. And believe me, she still tried. Every interaction, every phone call about the kids, every exchange in the courthouse parking lot was another performance. She'd flash that false smile, lean in close, and hiss something like, "You'd better not screw this up for me. We both know what really happened." No, we didn't. She thought she could rewrite history like she always did. But I remembered exactly how it went down. And the truth wasn't on her side. I lost sleep, though. Don't get me wrong, this wasn't easy. Night after night, I'd lay awake, staring at the ceiling, playing it out in my mind. Her smug look if she won. The headlines if the hospital paid her out. My kids overhearing that their mother beat the system, while their father looked like a liar or a coward. I couldn't let that happen. Not this time. The morning of the deposition, my nerves were raw. My stomach churned with that electric mix of fear and anticipation. I wore a plain suit, nothing flashy. I wanted to look like exactly what I was, a man with nothing to hide. She was already there when I arrived. Sitting smug at the conference table, papers neatly stacked in front of her, nails clicking against a coffee cup. She didn't look nervous at all. Why would she? She thought I was on her side. Her lawyer greeted me with that oily friendliness lawyers are so good at. Handshakes, small talk, pretending we were all just here for a little chat. But I saw the hunger in his eyes. He thought I was going to hand him the golden ticket, the testimony that would make his case airtight. They started simple. Background questions. Relationship to the patient. Where I was that day. What happened leading up to the fall. My heart thumped with every answer, but I kept my voice steady. Calm. Just another day in the truth. And then the moment came. The lawyer leaned forward, pen poised. Would you say the hospital staff gave your wife proper instructions about remaining in bed? Silence stretched. My ex shifted in her seat, already smirking like she knew what I was about to say. I looked him dead in the eye and said, I don't remember them giving her any instructions. What I do remember is that she demanded to get up. She wanted me to help her, and we weren't going to wait for the nurse. The smirk on her face cracked. Just a flicker, but I saw it. The lawyer frowned. He rephrased, pressed, tried to steer me. So you're saying the staff failed too? I cut him off gently, but firmly. I'm saying she insisted. Against better judgment. Against my advice. She demanded to get up. And that's when she fainted. That's what happened. Every word felt like a weight lifted off my chest. For years, I'd been trapped in her lies, suffocating under them. But in that room, for the first time in a long time, I felt free. The lawyer's pen stopped moving. He leaned back, lips tightening. My ex's face had gone pale, her jaw clenched so tight I thought her teeth might crack. And me? I sat there, calm as a stone. The rest of the deposition dragged on, but the damage was done. Her case wasn't just weak, it was dead. They had nothing without me. No star witness, no corroboration. Just her word against the hospitals. And her word wasn't worth a damn. A week later, I heard the news. Her lawyer dropped her case. Not only that, but he tried to bill her for the costs he'd sunk into it. Of course, she weaseled her way out of paying him too. She screwed him the way she screwed everyone else. But this time, it didn't matter. She lost. And she lost because of me. For once, the truth had been louder than her lies. And when I went home that night, for the first time in years, I slept. Really slept. When the case collapsed, I didn't hear it from her. She went quiet, eerily quiet. No triumphant phone calls, no smug little digs about how she was finally getting what she deserved. Just silence. But silence from her was never peace. It was the sound of her calculating, scrambling to find a new angle. I heard about the dismissal through a mutual acquaintance first, then through a legal notice that found its way to me. It was official. Her lawyer had withdrawn, the malpractice suit was dead in the water. And she wasn't just left without her payout. She was left owing. I'll never forget the first time I saw her after it all fell apart. We were at the usual exchange spot for the kids, a cold little parking lot behind a church. Normally, she strutted up with that air of superiority, chin high, eyes sharp like knives. That day, she looked deflated. Not broken, not yet, but smaller, duller. Her shoulders hunched under the weight of her own failure. She didn't say a word to me, just shoved the kids' bags into my hands and turned away. But I caught her glare before she walked off. Hatred. Pure, unfiltered hatred. And beneath it, fear. Because now she knew. I wasn't playing by her rules anymore. The kids, though, they were the real battlefield. She still tried to poison them against me, to twist every little detail into proof that I was some sort of monster. But kids aren't blind. They notice more than we give them credit for. And over time, they started to see the cracks in her mask. I remember one visit in particular. My youngest, still small enough to climb into my lap, asked, "Dad, why does Mom always say bad things about you, but you don't say bad things about her?" That question hit me harder than any of her schemes ever did. Because right there, in that little voice, was the proof that the tide was turning. I looked my kid in the eyes and said, "Because I'd rather show you who I am than tell you who she isn't." And slowly, piece by piece, they came back to me. It wasn't overnight. Years of her venom doesn't just wash away with a few kind words. But the more they spent time with me, the more they realized the truth for themselves. They saw the difference between her chaos and my calm, her lies and my honesty, her bitterness and my love. Even my family, who had endured her harassment and abuse for years, felt the shift. The late-night calls stopped. The threatening emails dwindled into nothing. She couldn't stand to face them after her big scheme blew up in her face. There was a day, I'll never forget it, when my mother hugged me and whispered, "She can't touch you anymore. You finally beat her." And she was right, because it wasn't just about the lawsuit. It was about taking back control. For so long, she had written the script of my life, dictating how I was seen, how I was treated, even how my own children looked at me. But in that conference room, when I told the truth under oath, I rewrote the ending. Her entire world revolved around lies. Manipulation was her only currency, and I'd bankrupted her in one stroke. The fallout lingered, of course. She didn't stop being who she was. She never apologized, never admitted defeat. People like her don't. They twist, they pivot, they pretend. But everyone around her knew what happened. Her friends, her neighbors, even her lawyer, people she thought she could charm, had seen her fail. And failure was the one thing she couldn't hide behind a smile. For me, though, it wasn't about gloating. It wasn't about rubbing her nose in it. My revenge wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was quiet, steady, undeniable. It was knowing she'd wake up every day with the reminder that her empire of lies had cracks now. Cracks she couldn't seal. It was seeing my kids' eyes soften when they looked at me, the walls she'd built between us starting to crumble. It was watching my parents finally breathe easy, no longer answering the phone in fear of another one of her midnight tirades. And it was lying in bed at night, finally able to close my eyes without the weight of her shadow pressing down on me. That was the real victory. Because the truth isn't always fast, and it isn't always easy. But once it's out, once it's spoken, it cuts deeper than any lie ever could. And for the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving her. I was free from her.